Once again, your host, Karen Hanan.
Thank you for staying with me. Well, Thrity Umrigar was a guest on this show a while ago with a previous novel. Her new novel is called The World We Found, came out earlier this year, and it's being very well received. I have read it myself, and I thoroughly recommend it. And Thrity has quite a lot of books to her name at this point. In fact, Thrity, thank you for joining me. And how many books have you got to your name now?
First of all, thank you for having me on the show, and I believe this is my 6th book. 5 out of the 6 are novels, and 1 is a memoir.
And in terms of where you focus your sort of subjects and where you sort of find your own interests, you often include both India and the United States. Tell us why and how that works.
Well, it's very simple, actually. These are the 2 countries that I've lived in the longest, and they are the cultures that I'm most familiar with. And as different and as diverse as both countries are from each other, I find that they also have a surprising amount in common. You know, they're both large countries. They are both diverse countries with really very varied populations. And they're both countries that I think have always grappled with the issue of how do we all get along? I mean, how do you take people from different religions, different backgrounds, different class backgrounds, and build a nation out of all these different people. And that's a subject that just fascinates me, and I find myself revisiting both these countries in my novels over and over again.
What was the inspiration for this particular novel?
The World We Found came about as a result of a trip to India that I had taken, I believe, in 2009. I was visiting family there, and I ran into a friend of mine that I had actually not seen in about 25 years. We were in college together and had really completely lost touch. And as often happens when you see somebody after a long time, we ended up spending the afternoon together. We hung out together for the rest of the day. And one of the things I asked her was whether she was still politically active as she had been in college, and she said no. And I asked her why, and she referred back to an actual event that had happened in the history of Bombay, and that was the Hindu-Muslim riots of 1992, 1993. And she said that she was so disillusioned by these riots that had really torn apart the city of Bombay, that it marked a kind of end to one part of her life, and she decided instead to change her focus, you know, go inward and focus more on family and friends and self. And even though I was not living in India by then, I could certainly at a very gut level, at a visceral level, I could certainly understand what she was saying, because those riots had really shaken me up quite a bit also. It was something that we just didn't ever expect to see happen in a city, a cosmopolitan city like Bombay. And when I left her home that day, you know, the basic outlines of the novel just unfolded in front of me. I kind of knew that I had found my next novel, the subject matter for my next novel. And indeed, that's, you know, the novel is about many things, but one of the things it is about is how these riots, you know, played such a huge role in sort of forming, not so much forming the characters, but perhaps shaping the destiny of some of these characters.
And certainly in The World We Found, I find that it really gives you an eye into the culture of India, and of course many of your readers will never have been to India, and this is a very accessible way of entering a country that's very different but yet has a lot of similarities, as you mentioned. And in your main 4 characters, I think people, women especially, will relate, I think, to the characters that you've created here. So talk about your 4 main protagonists.
Yeah, I hope you're right. I mean, I hope that there is something universal about these 4 women characters who meet as college friends in the Bombay of the 1970s, the late 1970s. And what immediately draws them to each other, I think, is their political activism. You know, they share the same beliefs. And the most basic belief is that it's up to them to build a better world. It's up to them to create a new India. But when the novel opens, 30 years have gone by. And the women now find themselves, you know, as middle-aged women. One of them has moved to the U.S. soon after graduation from college. And she discovers in the opening pages of the novel that she has a brain tumor and is not going to live terribly long. And because of that, she has this great desire to be reunited with the other three. And it's in the course of sort of finding the other three, finding their way to America to visit her, that some of the plot basically unfolds. But one of the reasons I was drawn to the subject matter was not so much only because of what my friend told me and what had happened to her, but I thought that in her youthful political activism, followed by this period of great disillusionment, there was a larger and perhaps a more universal story, and indeed there was an American story in that. Because when I left her apartment that evening in 2009, what I realized was that in her story was the story of the baby boomers, you know. It was the story of the whole 60s and 70s generation, you know. So everybody was active at one point in civil rights, feminist movement, etc. And then sort of the 1980s came along, and all that activism sort of went away, or at least it found new and different outlets. And that's what I'm hoping that my American readers will find, that they will see some part of their lives, especially readers of a certain age, will find their lives reflected in the lives of these women who, again, you know, in a very superficial way, live in a different country that's quite different from the U.S. But as a novelist, of course, my job is to talk about differences, but also to always talk about the common humanity. I mean, that to me is the essence of literature, you know, is to talk about shared values, shared experiences, rather than what divides us.
Right, and of course that really does come through in this book. In an area where perhaps it does not so much is your character Nishta, who falls in love with a man who ends up many years later becoming a fundamentalist Muslim, which of course then adds major restraints to her life. So that's a situation not so familiar to the average American reader. Talk about that and where the inspiration for those characters came from.
Well, the inspiration for those characters, in a sense, came from the real-life events of those riots that happened in Bombay's history in 1992, 1993. And I simply asked myself, you know, Iqbal, her husband, starts out life as basically one of them. I mean, you know, he's politically active, he has very liberal politics, he's very secular-minded. And then over the years, we learn to our growing horror, perhaps, that he has become this rather conservative, rather fundamentalist man. And I was interested in talking about religious fundamentalism, and perhaps even Islamic religious fundamentalism, but decoupling it from, you know, any aspect of terrorism. And one of the unfortunate trends, I think, that's happened in the West, and specifically in America, perhaps understandably so, and yet something to be lamented, I think, is how easily we sort of conflate fundamentalism with terrorism, you know, when it comes to Muslims and Islam. And it was very important to me in this novel to talk about it, to go beyond the prism of 9/11, and to talk about this issue in a manner that had nothing to do, as I said, that sort of decoupled fundamentalism from terrorism. I mean, Iqbal is deeply religious, but he is not at all, you know, a violent man, or at least not in a political sense. He's not a violent man. And I wanted people to sort of understand. I mean, there's a line in the novels that says something to the effect of, one of the other characters reflects on Iqbal and who he has become, and says Iqbal is what happens when civil society and when civic society fails an individual, and that's what you get.
And I think, as you said before, that is in fact a universal event that happens in every country, America, of course, included, where fundamentalism is here and alive and well as much as it might be in India or any other country. And I think, beyond that, the overriding sort of feeling you get from this book is that there are very strong ties that bind these four women, especially with their various sort of partners and so on. But, it sucks you in as a reader. I think you enjoy these characters. And And I had to say, by the end of the book, I was kind of wishing you'd keep going, because I wanted to know what was going to happen next.
Gosh, if I had $1 for every single time that point has been raised at a book reading or some such, I think I would be rich by now.
And Thrity, what is coming next? I'm assuming it isn't The World We Found Part 2.
Well, I have to say, I mean, that request for a sequel has come up so frequently that I have gone from saying never, absolutely not, it's out of the question, to saying maybe. But that is certainly not what I'm working on currently. I'm working on another novel. The tentative working title for it is I Begins, and it tells the story of a rather unlikely friendship, if you will, that springs up between these two women. One is a recent immigrant to the U.S. from India. She's somebody with little education. She runs her husband's grocery store in the U.S., and the other is this African-American woman therapist who comes into her life. And the book is really simply an exploration of power and how that balance of power in a friendship is constantly in flux. It's constantly shifting.
Well, we will look forward to that. In the meantime, I do encourage you to read The World We Found. I'm sure you can get it from our local bookstores, from Port Book and News or Odyssey Books or Pacific Mist Books. And if they don't have it, you can get them to order it, I'm sure. Thrity, you do have a website too, so why don't we give that out so people can connect with you that way?
Oh, thank you. Yes, it's www.umrigar.com. That's UMRIGAR.com. That's just my last name. And, in fact, you can reach me via email through the website, and I would love to hear from some readers.
Okay, all right. The World We Found, great for book clubs or just a great read, really, for anybody at any time, I think. My guest has been Thrity Umrigar, and thank you so much for being here with me on Artbeat.
Oh, thank you very much. Truly my